Welcome to Building Our Gaming Community. This is the second session as we continue to layer out and structure a really powerful and positive and welcoming community for our gamers and by our gamers. Where the first session was about establishing some important guidelines and structures for our gamers, what we start to do now in the second session that will continue on to the third is involve our gamers in actively shaping what this community can look like for them in terms of what they believe in, to build buy-in by them. What we want to do with them is establish these type of goals for the day and to let them know this is what we want to accomplish. That we're looking at establishing community expectations, that they are going to now do that. We have the gamer code of conduct, we have the temporary norms, and now we need them to create the norms that are going to be for the group. Again, this could have been started with the officers if you have them ahead of time, although it's really powerful if we can do this with the club members as well at the same time, and maybe have the officers help you facilitate this. And then once we have these norms done, we're going to have the students practice them as they play. So there's constant play as they are learning, because the more they learn and build these strong skills for interacting for the norms, then they will be better at the gaming. And we just want them to have fun. So just a reminder of a possible format, whatever is your format, have that up for them to see and know. In this case, the example is the idea that they would sign in. There would be a place where they would store their belongings, or they'd have them stored someplace like in their lockers or whatever the school or district policy is. That's where they would do with their belongings. Doing esports stretches. There are videos. There's one in the notes here that you might use. There are different stretches that they can do that will help reduce the chances of injury. And then we want to review the club norms and then do the esports exploration. In this case, it's going to be about building norms for the community. And then there's the free time, the time for them to play the titles they want to play based upon the list that you have provided. And then doing some type of reflection to think about their practice, their communications, what they do as a gamer to be better at that process. And then signing out. So if this is what you would have for yours, then this is what you'd keep. If you would do something a little bit differently, then have that format so that the gamers can see that. Strongly recommended that items review club norms, esports exploration, free time, and post-play reflection be core parts of your club. So the first thing that we would do is we would review the gamer code of conduct, the key ideas. And this is something that we can review or have one of the officers review. One way of doing this is having everyone look at the list and identify which one they think is most important to focus on for the day, and then have them share with a partner, and then have a couple of them, 2 or 3, share out loud. That's one way. Another way is have them look at the list and identify which one they think is most important, and then do a vote and see which one of these pops up the most, and then say, hey, this will be a good focus for us. Both activities only take about 60 seconds to accomplish, and then we can move on to the next phase of our work and experiences. What it does do, though, is makes it present, and whatever we spend time on means that that's important. And then we look at the norms, and the norms are also very important. Whereas the gamer code of conduct is the structure of our expectations, the norms are the behaviors of how we meet those expectations. And so we have them look at the norms and think about which one would be most important to ensure that we're all working well together for today, and let them identify what that norm would be. So I framed it as what would help us be effective in our work today. I didn't say what would help us play the game well at this point, because we're going to have them create norms, and we want them to be thinking about what does it mean to be a good team member? Which one of these helps us the most? And they might say, oh, well, it's showing patience to others, or communication is key. And then we'll say, okay, well then let's be mindful of that as we move forward. But we let them pick, because that's the theme of today, is we want the students to have agency to make decisions about how things are done and shaped for this club. So this club is theirs. So they're not just guests, but they're actually the hosts. So now we're going to establish community expectations. These are the norms for the club, the behaviors for how we're going to best support each other and show that we're being supportive through our actions and deeds. In this option, what will happen is we put students into random groups, usually of 3 or 4 if possible. And in the course of 10 minutes, this is what's going to happen. They're going to take 3 minutes to think about and share experiences where they were part of a positive and productive group. This could have been a team, a club, some other organization, it could be a job they're part of. It could be part of their family unit or friend group where they have found that it was positive, because we want them to think about what made it positive. And that's what we're going to do individually. As they listen to the stories, they're going to then collect a list of what were the characteristics that made that positive. Was it the communication? Was it people were respectful in terms of how they talked? Did they feel like they were heard? That there was like this synergy where people were just were listening to each other? That they were friendly? Whatever those characteristics were, we want them to identify, and we want to identify the positive characteristics. So they do that individually and give them about 2 minutes to do that. And then we're going to have them share back in their group, their teams, what those characteristics were, and then as a group identify what they feel are the top 3, that as a group that they would say this is most important to their group if they were working together. What are those top 3 characteristics? The next step is that each team is going to share one of the characteristics. We're going to go round robin, and you might use chart paper, you might use some type of virtual documentation in the cloud where you are capturing the ideas. You might have your student officers capture the ideas as you facilitate this, and each group shares a characteristic. It gets posted, and then after you go around with every group, then you go around a second time and you have them share their next one. Now, if their second or third characteristic was already shared by another group, and they have no more to share, then they just say pass. But if they have at least one more characteristic they could share, like someone shared their second one but not their third one, then they shared that one. And we do 3 rounds if we can, assuming that that every team doesn't say pass because all their ideas were already posted by others. And then we will look at that list. Another way to look at possible norms is, instead of using their experiences outside of gaming, have them experience gaming and then unpack from there what they feel are important experiences or characteristics. So in this case, what happens is you do a round where the students are in teams and they're going to play a game together. So a collaborative game would be most useful in this process. There's a lot of different games that do that. One of my favorite ones is Overcooked, because players have to be in teams of anywhere from 2 to 4, and they're in this virtual kitchen. They have to complete menu dishes and then expedite that. And then as they continue with it, the timer goes faster and faster, where at some point there's going to be an epic fail, and then that's the end of the round. So you're trying to see how far you can go without having an epic fail. And it does require a lot of teamwork and communication. Whatever the game is going to be, one that they can work as a team in that game, and preferably something that's a short game that's about 5 minutes or less if possible, because you want that time to unpack what they did. And then what you do is you have the team afterwards reflect about what was areas of success and what were opportunities for improvement. What worked well, what didn't work well, and why. And the why is usually because either someone felt frustrated and didn't ask others for help, or other people figured things out and didn't share with their colleagues. And so that's the communication piece. How can we communicate more effectively? How can we be more patient with ourselves if we're getting frustrated? Or how can we be more patient with others who we feel are not quite carrying the weight that we were hoping that they were going to be able to do? There's a game for Tetris that are called Tetrio, and this is just another way. And what happens is usually you play individually, and you can have like 4 or 6 people playing at the same time or more. And this one's a little bit adapted. It's the idea that we're going to put people in pairs as a team, and they're going to be on one keyboard, that pair working with the arrow keys and the space bars. So they'll divide up the arrow keys however they want, and then one of the pairs, partner one, will have the space bar, and then they will compete. And just having to communicate, it's going to force them to communicate as they're trying to manipulate pieces as time goes down. And that can set up some intense situations, which is what we want, in the sense that it's a safe place where we're going to reflect. And once we finish with that first round, then we want the team to reflect about that, to think about what they're doing. What was challenging in the game? What was challenging about working as a team? How could we communicate? How could communication be improved to maximize team performance? Make a strategy for playing round two. So they strategize and they play the game again. So same process, they might play the same level, or you might have them go to the very next level if there is one, and have them compete with that. And then you have them reflect, and now they're going to identify the 2 to 3 characteristics that they think were most effective or could be most effective for them to be a good, efficient team. And so you play the second round, whichever game you're going to do, and then you do the process of reflection again, and they generate those 2 to 3 characteristics that are going to be shared out. Each team shares out one of their characteristics. We go 3 rounds, and if a team finds that their 3 characteristics were already said by other teams, then they just say pass. And so that's how we do this. We record this either in chart paper or digitally, and then we have a list that we can look at for community expectations. Now, once we have the list, we have people ask clarifying questions if there's things in the list that just doesn't quite make sense or clear to them. So it's an opportunity to make things clear. Make sure that we identify, are there any that are similar that maybe could be combined, and then we have them work on that. And then we tell them that we want them to think about this for the next meeting, because that's when they're going to pick. So we want them to reflect from now until the next meeting, and then we'll vote at the next meeting from that list to identify what our 3 to 5 norms are going to be, our community expectations. In this phase, we go into free play, where the students go to different stations based upon where the games they want to play are located. Again, this is a list of games that have been approved by your school or district that you've already identified and you've placed in different parts of the space so that they can participate. And there's only so many seats to play a particular game, and when those seats are filled, then students have the option to watch and engage in conversation, or to go to a different game and try that out for the day. If we find there are students who are just consistently not able to get to a game that they wanted to play and they haven't gotten to play for like the last day, then maybe you give them the opportunity to play over someone else who had gotten to play last time, so that there's not a group of people or an individual who's just taking over a space and just not giving other people the chance to try that as well. It's a gray area. It's something you just work out as the situation dictates. And you want them to be thinking about the norms. You can use your temporary norms, or you can keep the list that they've just generated and say, you want to be mindful of this list and reflect about what's most important in that list to you and see how things work. At the end of the day, before we excuse them, we want to get their feedback, want to reflect on how they did with the temporary norm, or if you want to use the new list of norms that they've identified, the community expectations, do fist of 5. Have students think about what was valuable and what could be better in terms of the gamer experience. If any students rate the experience a 1, 2, or 3, then they're people that you're going to want to follow up with and just get their feedback, one-on-one, and see if there's anything that can be done to make the experience more powerful and positive for them. This concludes Building Our Gaming Community, Session 2. In the next session, we will look at the closure of establishing this culture that your students will own as they have agency around the work that they are doing and the fun that they're having.